Very quickly, I'll ask my co-presenter, the star of the show, Dr. Joan Kang Shin, to ask the same.
All right, everyone. Hi, can you see me? And can you hear me? Excellent. Hello there.
Fantastic. Great, great, great. Well, we are at the start of the hour, and we have much to show you, and we want time for your questions as well. So I'm going to get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar, What's New in Our World, second edition, with a very special guest, series editor Dr. Joan Kang Shin. My name is Dave Spain, and I support teachers of English to young learners and very young learners here at National Geographic Learning. And I'll be your host for the webinar, and I will be Dr. Shin's support during our webinar today as well. Before I introduce Dr. Joan Kang Shin officially, there are a few items I want to go over with you so you have a great session experience today. Number one, as always, it's best if you can connect with the strongest internet connection possible, like wired, for example, if you can. We know that's not always possible, though. We're all on the go. But it does prevent some connectivity issues that sometimes our users experience. So if that's possible. That being said, if for any reason you are disconnected, please do try to connect again. Come back in. We'll still be in the room. We'll be waiting for you. But also, if you do have a lot of trouble, don't worry. We will send a link to the recording of the session as well as the slides from the session after the session is over. So you'll have an opportunity to watch and listen and review as well at a later date. If you lose your sound, or for some reason you can't see the screen, the slides anymore, we recommend that you close the window and you re-enter the webinar room through the original link that you were sent in your email. Again, we'll be waiting for you. This session will be a little interactive, we hope. So there will be a multiple choice poll or two for you, as well as lots of opportunity for you to ask us questions in the chat box throughout the session if you like. But additionally, we will save time at the end for your questions. We want to hear from you. And last, you will be directed to a short survey at the end of the session, at the end of the webinar. We would love to hear your feedback about how this session went. Was it enjoyable for you? Did you learn? Is it helpful for you? And what can we do to be better in the future? Okay? So, without further ado, let's get started and let me welcome Dr. Joan Kang Shin. Dr. Joan Kang Shin is an associate professor of education at George Mason University and the academic program coordinator of the Teaching Culturally and Linguistically Diverse and Exceptional Learners program. Dr. Shin specializes in teaching ESL, EFL to young learners and teenagers and has provided professional development programs and workshops to AFL teachers in over 100 countries around the world. She is a series editor of our National Geographic Learning's Young Learner programs, Welcome to Our World and Explore Our World, now in their second editions, as well as the teen program Impact, and she is a co-author of the professional development title, Teaching Young Learners English. So Joan, thank you so much. We're so happy to have you here today to share with me, with all of us here, why you're so excited about this new edition of Our World.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's such a pleasure to be able to talk about our world. It's an amazing series that I felt actually very lucky to be a part of. And I would like to say that here at National Geographic Learning, there's a lot of people who put a lot of work into making our world what it is. So many writers and editors and people working in video and music and trying to work together to provide the best of what we know to be the ways to teach English to young learners around the world in global contexts, in contexts like the ones that you are in and teaching in. So it's such a pleasure. Thank you for that introduction.
Before we really dive in to what we want to share with you today, the exciting updates for Our World and Explore Our World Second Edition, we'd like to give you a little taste, if we can, of what that's going to look like. I hope you were able to see and hear that video. If you weren't, we will make sure that you're able to watch it in the slides afterwards. I am seeing a few comments that the video did not play so great for you, but that's okay because everything in the video we're going to show you through slides as well. And we'll send you a link so that you can watch it later. For those of you who were able to see the video and hear it, what you will have seen is that with Our World Second Edition, we really want to make sure that our young learners of English are able to learn about their world. They'll learn their world. And so what that means is that we expect students will learn more than we expect them to. Learn more than just English. Learn more through cross-curricular topics that challenge them. We want our young learners to do more this time around with projects, with extensive critical thinking activities, and a lot of visual literacy work. And more than anything, we want to improve learning outcomes. We want students to be motivated, and we want students to achieve more than they might think they can achieve, than they might have been able to achieve before. That's very, very important to us. So if there's one theme for the second edition of Our World and Explore World, it's that idea of more, being able to do more. So, Joan, can you tell us a little bit about what your experience was over the past couple of years working with teachers in the field, teachers in countries all over the world of young learners, sometimes who were using your program on Our World, sometimes who weren't. What did teachers who were using Our World say about it?
Great question. And everyone can still hear me, right? All right. So, one of the things that I really have the pleasure of being able to do is to be able to go around the world and work with teachers, perhaps like many of you who are here online now, and to work with our world, to get feedback on our world, and to really see also what are the needs of teachers in their classrooms. And so some of the feedback that we got, of course, was very positive. There were teachers, and you can see here some comments from teachers in Mexico about giving the feedback about our world, right? So first of all, and I would agree with this, it is a new learning experience, right? Even for us working on our world, there's so much to know about our world. So learning new content from National Geographic, you can see teachers are saying that their students now know more about the world. I think one of the exciting things for teachers is that teachers feel like they know even more about the world. A comment here that I thought was very interesting to share, and this is from China, is that you have to balance student interest and the learning process together. And so one of the things that's amazing about using real content is that students are actually more engaged because they're interested in the topics and in learning about their world and our world. And so that's a great way to connect students with the English language. And so as this teacher in Morocco said, right, it was enjoyable with the value of the material, not only teaching language, but also teaching about the world around us. And even though we are thinking about teaching English language, the first thing we have to think about is that we're teaching children. We're teaching young people in this world. And we have to prepare our children for their future. That's our number one goal, no matter whether we're teaching math, science, social studies, or languages. We want to prepare our kids for the world that they will live in and that they are living in. And I think that's really one of the highlights and the most exciting things about working with our world materials.
It really has been a fantastic pleasure to be able to work with you, Joan, and the Young Learners team here at National Geographic Learning over the past 5 years with this program. As we saw on the slides here, we've had a lot of fantastic experiences with teachers and with students all over the world who have felt that Our World was able to truly bring something new into their classroom. That said, there's always room for improvement, right?
Sure.
Always, right? We always want to strive to be better. And so, can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you heard when you were working with teachers and schools around the world that they were hoping for with a new edition?
Sure. I mean, you can't get everything.
You can't get everything perfect the first time around. And in fact, the only way, and everyone who's a teacher can understand that. You can develop what you think is the perfect lesson, but then until you actually do it in class and then get feedback from students, that's when you really know what are the things that work and what are the things maybe that don't work as well. And so for us, it's the same way, right? We developed what we thought was a great program for teaching children English, but we got feedback from teachers, and when I was going around the world, these were some of the comments that I heard, and also feedback that we got from experts from different countries. So, one of the things that we heard was that the lesson pages need more on-page support and signposting. And so, we really tried to highlight the National Geographic photos and the content. But of course, teachers also were interested in seeing more labels and signs so that they know what to do as they're using the pages with students. Another thing that we heard was about grammar charts that were needed so that teachers would have those grammatical structures there in order to guide students to learn that grammar. The starter level needed a video, so that was something that we developed the starter level after we developed levels 1 to 6 because we realized that there were many contexts that needed a starter to ease their students into level 1. So we didn't have a video, okay, but that's one of the updates. Also some feedback of my NG Connect, that our online platform was hard to navigate and that the students' online experience needed to be improved. And we were asked for more assessment, more phonics support, and more content prompts in the writing lessons. And so we heard this feedback and just knew that in the second edition, that we would have to address some of these things that we kept hearing from teachers. And so, one of the things that we wanted to do with improving all of this in Our World Second Edition was kind of not taking away any of the best parts of our world, and yet adding some more of content and supports that teachers needed in order to carry out our world in an effective way. And one of the things that's challenging and, a conversation I would have oftentimes with teachers is that our methodology, our approach for using Our World is different from other books because it really is utilizing content to teach English. And that's a new way of teaching. And so I think that might be kind of the foundation for some of the feedback that we got. And I think now that we're going to continue with this very effective methodology of using interesting content to teach language, that now we're able to provide some of the details of the supports that teachers have said that they needed.
That's fantastic.
I see David's back now.
I am back. Yes.
Oh, we can't hear you, David.
Ooh, can you hear me now?
We can hear. Oh, okay.
Perfect. Good. Room change, everyone. We just wanted to make sure the experience is as best for all of you as it can be. So we hope this helps with any audio. Joan, thank you so much for explaining what some of those areas that teachers told us when we were working with them, they said that they wanted to maybe see some evolution on in the new edition. So I think what you said, a comment you made, is really, really on point, which is that with Our World Second Edition, we're looking to provide new in some cases, but also more. Take what worked really well the first time around and maybe leave it alone or improve it only slightly, but in areas where we felt we could provide much more support or much more real-world content or much more teaching support or at-home support, we wanted to do that. So first and foremost, we wanted to ensure that in some major areas of the lessons, students would experience more and they would learn more, whether that's through the cross-curricular content areas and the real-world content in the material, whether that's through a fantastic resource like video, which we know is incredibly useful in the Our World program, whether that's through the grammar lessons and the in-context grammar curriculum of the program, or whether that's through reading, whether that's through reading lessons or additional reading opportunities or additional teaching support for reading as well. So, Joan, can you tell us a little bit about what's new from a real-world content perspective? I mean, when it comes to an Our World student book unit, what are we going to see that's real, that's new, that's exciting, that will help our students to experience more of the real world and get more real knowledge.
Hmm. Well, of course, because we have this resource of National Geographic, we are able to kind of pick and choose in terms of amazing photography. So, as if you know, if you are an Our World user already, every single unit starts with an opener, a photo, to introduce children to the topic and the content of that particular unit. So one of the things that we were able to do is to really refresh and include some new photos for the opener. And we've kept some of the really amazing ones, some of the favorites, and added ones that would also capture the interest of our young learners even more. And we've refreshed the vocabulary lessons with more real world photos. So you might remember that there were a lot of illustrations, which were nice. But in order to connect children to the world around them, it's great to be able to add even more photos. So the song lessons have beautiful photography as well, including the grammar lessons. One thing I can say though is that, and you all probably know this as English language teachers, it's so important to teach language by putting it into a meaningful context, especially for our young learners. That is the only way that they can see how language is used and start to build their ability to use language. And so, so we have updated readings to provide additional, more meaningful context for young learners, and including lots of real world subjects that are interesting to kids, and even some more stories that are interesting to kids as well, that can teach lessons and can engage them and promote values. Speaking of values, we've refreshed the value and mission lessons because you know we're always trying to incorporate good values and also sort of good lessons for young learners to become more empathetic people, to become people who can work with others, people who are kind to animals. We want them to grow up to be people who care about our world. And so we've refreshed those value and mission lessons. And it's not only the new design and new photos, but we also included some more support for teachers to engage our young learners in those values and missions. So every single page now has a think, pair, share activity. We have updated writing lessons with some new contents and prompts. So one of the things I will mention is that I did get some feedback from teachers who said, well, you know, that writing prompt wasn't really so useful for my children because they didn't really know enough about that particular topic. And so we tried to take that feedback and create some new content prompts for the writing lessons so that it would be more meaningful to children at that age. And I might have mentioned reading lessons. We have new extended reading lessons every 3 units with real stories and photos so that young learners have more opportunities to read.
She's so polite, isn't she? She even turns the microphone off. While we wait for Joan to catch her breath, I'm so excited that she was able to share so many of those updates with you. Yes, bless you, Joan. And here you can see just some of the great examples of some of the things that Joan talked about, whether or not it was new ways to introduce students to a unit topic, fantastic new photos for song lessons. Oh, one of my favorites. I love this one here in India. There she is. Are you all right, Joan?
I am. I survived the coughing fit. I'm
Fantastic.
so sorry, everyone, but I managed to hit mute so you didn't have to hear me
Fantastic.
coughing.
I'm glad that you're all right. We were just looking at some of examples of the
Yes,
things that
I've
you were
recovered.
showing, like completely refreshed vocabulary lessons with fantastic photography, the new writing prompts here, or refreshed and rewritten mission and value pages as well. Joan, can you tell us of all the things that you just talked about, all the updates, and those were specifically to the student book lessons, is there one in particular that you are most excited about, or you think is going to make the biggest difference in the classroom, in the ELT classroom, in
Hmm.
this day in 2019 in 2020?
hmm Well, let me see. I mean, I think there are a couple of things. If I think about what it's like to be able to teach this from the teacher's perspective, I think that, as you're looking through these pages, you can see that there are more signposts so that the teacher knows exactly what is on this page, what is the focus of it, what unit am I on, and also the instructions, I think, are a little bit clearer than from the student's perspective, right? So that they can see what they're going to do, listen and point, for example. And if I think about from both student and teacher's perspective, one of the things that I think is a beautiful aspect of our world is that I think that teachers and students are also sometimes learning together about aspects of our world. And so, for example, maybe you can go back to the mission and values page that we have. um, I'm excited about the Think, Pair, Share activity because I think one of the things I heard, and I mentioned it before, is that teachers were wondering, well, how am I going to engage students in these values and the mission pages? And this is really where we're trying to include values and the mission that really affect us in 21st century life in being able to understand our world and to also think about how we can interact with the world to help make our world a better and safer place. And so for me, I'm really excited about that. I think one focus in terms of providing teachers with more support is really a way to be able to help our young learners engage with the material more
Hmm.
effectively. And so that's really where we were. It's like, what's from the teacher's perspective do they need? But why? So that our young learners can make the most out of every single page and every text in our world. So that's really what I'm excited about. And I think have really hit that mark with the second
That's
edition.
fantastic. That's so great. Thank you for sharing that. So, in addition to all of the updates to the student book lessons and units themselves, we have also worked to provide updates and more resources for the different levels. So, in Our World Second Edition, if you're a current user or you're familiar with it at all, you'll know that Our World First Edition has had a phenomenal video program. Lots of options for you to support every lesson in levels 1 through 6. But starter level didn't have that great same video support. So in this new edition, we wanted to make sure that the starter level of Our World also had fantastic video teaching support as well. And so every unit of the starter level of Our World Second Edition has a video available for you to help teach the vocabulary and those grammar structures and those other lessons. And we're going to try to show you a little bit of that right now.
This is our world. Everybody's got a song to sing. Each boy and girl. This is our world.
Starter, Unit 4, My Body. Vocabulary.
Eyes, ears, hair, a nose,
I hope you were all able to experience that. If you couldn't, due to any connectivity issues, again, we will provide the video for you to watch in the after when we provide you with an email with a link to the recording and also to the slides as well. So I apologize for anyone who was not able to experience that to the best, but we will make sure you're able to after the session as well. So we're very excited about this edition because we know that video is such a strong resource for teachers to be able to support their lessons. And so we're very happy to be able to provide a full video resource for the starter level of Our World Now as well. Additionally, as Joan mentioned, grammar is always very important when it comes to any young learner English language learning classroom. And so we wanted to make sure that we took the best of what Our World had to offer in the first edition when it came to teaching grammar and context, but then also improve on that and provide you with even more support this time around based on what you told us you wanted. So Joan, can you tell us a little bit about what we've done to make the grammar teaching in Our World Second Edition even stronger?
Sure. I mean, first, if you're familiar with Our World already, you know that there are 2 grammar lessons per student's book unit, and there's grammar practice in the workbooks, and we even have, separate grammar workbooks. There's practice online students can do, and even more practice and even games in the classroom presentation tools. So, there's a lot of grammar that's presented. But of course, probably more importantly, is that we're presenting grammar in an effective way for young learners. Okay, and so we want to make sure students are seeing the grammar used in meaningful context. We want to make sure that students are active in learning and practicing the grammar and seeing the grammar in action, right? So one of the things that we wanted to do for the grammar lessons, of course, is to integrate more real-world photos to connect that grammar in a more effective way in the book. We also have improved grammar charts. Okay, so we've updated, you can see the grammar chart there, where we put in these sort of key grammar words that are more for the teacher than they are for the student, I would say. And so that was something that I think I mentioned teachers had said, is that more improved information on the grammar charts. And I think that that is going to be really helpful for teachers. And even if you have younger students who don't need to be taught grammar that explicitly, right? They just need to be practicing and seeing it used in context and actually practicing it in context. It helps the teacher know what is the focus for that lesson. And so that was one thing that we heard, and that was one thing that we added to the grammar part of Our Worlds. So hopefully that is something that teachers will find is more effective to help your young learners be able to interact with that grammar in a meaningful way. So, here you can see an example from the workbook, right?
Exactly.
Where you have this chart that will be very helpful for teachers. So we heard you. Those of you who are users of Our World, that was something that was important. So we hope that you will find that more effective.
Right.
And yes,
So
the next part is about reading. And as you can see here, we have read more, you need to know more. And so one of the things that we added in addition to the reading lessons is that more extended readings. And so we mentioned that there are new photos and more real-world subjects for the updated readings, but also those extended readings every 3 units. Yes, I see a little pointer there that the reading page is labeled very clearly. By the way, we always think it's important also for learners to be able to hear the reading as they're following along. That's a really important thing. And so that's something that we encourage you to do. Here you can see an example of an extended reading. And by the way, one of the best ways for people in general, never mind young learners, to build their vocabulary in addition to knowledge is to have more extensive reading, more opportunities to read, more opportunities to see the language that they're learning in a context. And so what we think is a great way to encourage that with young learners is to provide more reading in the book and to be able to give them that extra opportunity to take language that they have learned and to see it in a new context so that they can start to really see how the language works in even more context. So that was one of the things that we did, and you can see here one example. I think we have another example. Here's another example of extended reading. So again, it's not just stories. We do have stories in extended reading, but we also have informational texts as well. So students can also be exposed to more real world content.
that's fantastic. So as we said, readings will be updated. There are new extended readings, one after every 3 units. So a fantastic question in the chat box was, with all this new content, do we need more hours? And the answer is really no. If you have more hours, that's great. But if you have the same amount of hours with your students as before, really, this is extra reading opportunities that you can choose to use. You can choose not to use. But there is only one after every 3 units, and there are 9 units in a student's book. So really, we've accommodated for this in the new pacing guides for the second edition.
Mm-hmm.
So, as one thing we said
See
earlier
that soon.
was that we also want students to feel like they can do more and they can achieve more. We want to show parents that their children can do that and show you that they can do that as well. And so there are a couple of areas where we've made some great updates that we want to share with you. One is through projects, the other is through phonics, and last through assessment. And I saw a great question earlier about assessment, and I'll make sure to answer that question when we get there. But first, Joan, could you tell us a little bit about what's new with the projects in Our World Second Edition?
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess first I'll say that I got a lot of feedback about how, great the projects are for kind of bringing together the whole unit and giving students an opportunity to practice a language and also to be able to use their creativity and their critical thinking skills, really all those 21st century skills that are important. And it's a really effective way to use projects to be able to build those 21st century skills. So one of the things that we wanted to do, of course, is to update the projects. So there are a few new projects. So you can see here 1 to 2 new projects per level, and levels 4 to 6. We also wanted to provide more support for teachers to be able to carry out the projects. So you know that we always give this kind of step-by-step instructions, and for the lower levels we even give more visual instructions. So that helps the teacher to be able to take the learners through the steps of the project, but also some additional instructions for teachers in the lesson planner also to be able to carry out the projects. By the way, so important on every page. You can see on the other side the now I can statements also is a part of that kind of having students self-assess. Okay, and so that still remained from what we had before, but it's really important for our young learners to start to kind of self-monitor, and so this encourages that process for them to do that. Like now I can, blah, blah, blah. All right. Here you can see a project also integrating technology. And so here we're having them design a superpower app. So talk about trying to encourage 21st century skills, really try to update that so that we are really engaging our young learners in the skills that they can actually use in the real world, right? So something like that is a very authentic type of task.
Fantastic. Yes. And of course, many of the projects that we got such great feedback on from the first edition are still here in the second edition, just refreshed, redesigned, new directions. But there are completely new projects in some of the upper levels of our world, specifically levels 4 through 6, to make sure that the projects are as engaging and as relevant and current as they possibly can be.
Mhm.
Additionally, we mentioned that the teachers we worked with said that they wanted more phonics support. And actually, in many cases, those comments were brought to us before we released Our World Phonics. So really, Our World Phonics First Edition, which came a couple of years into Our World's existence, was our first answer to this request from teachers. For the second edition, we are updating it so that it has the same amount of on-page support for teachers with regards to the lesson heads, the numbering of activities, etc. But additionally, besides the Our World Phonics books, the Sounds of English flashcards with the flashcard sets will be updated for the second edition as well. And now we're very happy to say that in the second edition, Our World Phonics will be available in both American and British English editions as well, which makes me very, very happy. I'm very happy
Yay!
to be able to let you know that they'll be available. And also, we wanted to make sure that the assessment materials for Our World were as useful as they can possibly be as well. So in this second edition, we're providing you a refreshed, rewritten, and hopefully more helpful assessment suite of material that you can find online through the ExamView Assessment Suite. It will be a completely online assessment program that will be free to you on your Teacher's Companion site, and it will include unit quizzes, mastery tests, final exams, and a completely refreshed and rewritten placement test that hopefully will be easier for you to use in order to place your students in the appropriate level of Our World. As I mentioned, it'll be completely available online. And additionally, the quizzes and tests and exam questions have been refreshed and rewritten in some cases to be more challenging in some cases where we felt they weren't challenging enough, and in other areas to provide some more support for some international exams that your students may need to take. It won't be explicit support, but we do want to make sure that any students who have to take any of those common international exams will be prepared to do so. Great question. Are the tests taken online or are they paper-based? This will be an exam view program, so you'll be able to use this to either run your pre-prepared quizzes or tests that you can print, so they will be print-based, or you can use the ExamView software to customize those tests and quizzes and exams for your classroom as well. but they will not be online based. They will be paper-based tests for the student. Fantastic question. Thank you for asking it. So let's just take a quick look at what a unit looks like. For any of you who are familiar with the Our World program, and I think many of you are based on the chat box, this should look very familiar to you. The structure of an Our World unit has not changed in the second edition, nor has the structure of an Explore Our World sister program changed in the second edition. So you can see that we still begin with a unit opener to be able to make it easy to introduce students to new topics, followed by a first vocabulary lesson, then a song lesson, then our first grammar lesson, our second vocabulary lesson and second grammar lesson, our reading, then a value in levels 1 through 3, or a mission lesson in levels 4 through 6, a writing lesson with those new updated prompts, and finally that project to show what students can do. But what we have changed is the support you have while working through those lessons on the page to hopefully make it easier for you to be able to teach those fantastic lessons. So every lesson now has on-page lesson heads to make it very clear which lesson you're working with. Are we on vocabulary 1? Are we in grammar 2? Is this the writing? Is this the reading? We've renumbered the activities for every lesson so that at the beginning of grammar 1, it's activity 1, 2, and 3 to make it very clear where a lesson starts and ends. We've added extra support on the bottoms of the pages to make it easier for you to keep track of what unit you're in. And in many cases, we've completely simplified the activity directions so that they're easier to teach the activities, they're easier for students to understand. So you can see here an example of a vocabulary lesson. We have our new lesson head at the top. Our activities are renumbered so that they start at number 1. We've added the unit number to the bottom of every spread so you know exactly which unit you're in. And we've rewritten the direction lines for the activities to be as clear and simple as they can possibly be. We hope that by doing this, these same fantastic, interesting cross-curricular units and lessons that you remember from the first edition are going to be even easier for you to support in your classroom and easier for your students to be able to engage with as well. We also wanted to make the lesson planner, which is a fantastic support resource for teachers, even better as well. So Joan, can you just tell us briefly, please, because we have only about 12 minutes left with our fantastic group, what are some of the great quality of life updates to the lesson planner for teachers?
So the good thing is we've kept that kind of same high level of support, which includes even teacher talk samples. We sort of give you that outline of what's in the unit. In addition, there's always that section on the other side of the page that you can see, Be the Expert, where we give you details about the photos because maybe you don't know where they come from or what the photo represents, as well as teaching tips that include classroom management tips and things that will help you to carry out the lesson, this particular lesson, but then maybe even future lessons more effectively. Another thing that I think is so helpful, and it came up before, is that we provided pacing guides with these icons that you can see here. So if you just have 2 to 3 hours a week, or 3 to 4, or 4 to 6 hours, you know which activities to make sure you do and which ones that maybe you can skip. Okay, so that's really helpful, and it's a good, easy visual cue for you to make those decisions sometimes, even if it's right there in class. Right, and you're running out of time, like we are running out of time, then you know which activity you must do, okay, to be able to carry out the objectives of the lesson. We also have updated writing rubrics to make it easier for you to assess writing. And then again, like the Think, Pair, Share activities that I mentioned for the Value and Missions page, there are additional instructions, guidance for you to be able to carry out those lessons. And hopefully that is going to make you feel like more confident to be able to carry out these lessons with the information that we provide on the student's book page. Speaking of rubrics, I mentioned the writing rubrics. There are also updated project rubrics, because also so important for you to also know how to assess the projects that your students create. So here you can see very easy, right? Did students sketch out ideas for a superpower app? Did students exchange ideas to improve each other's work? Did students explain how their app solves a problem? It makes it very easy for you to be able to assess students. And here you can see also here, again, speaking of assessment, always ways to provide formative assessment, which is something that I think teachers sometimes struggle with, but we provide the guidance for you to also do that for every single lesson, and that is in the lesson planner.
Fantastic. I'm personally most excited about the pacing guide icons. I think they're a fantastic addition, and they're going to make it so much easier for teachers to make really smart choices about which teaching support areas, which teaching instructions, and which parts of a lesson they do or do not do in their classroom. So I'm super thrilled about that. I'm also very, very excited to tell you about the completely refreshed in-class and at-home digital support we have for the second edition of Our World. We have 3 completely new resources for you, and 1 fantastic updated resource from Dr. Joan Kang Shin herself. First and foremost, the classroom presentation tool, your fantastic teaching support resource for your classrooms, has been completely upgraded and updated for the second edition. So now it includes interactive students book, workbook, and grammar workbook pages, so that no matter which student-facing support book you have in the classroom, you'll be able to pull those pages up on your screen and interact with them with your students. The audio, the video will be embedded at point of use, and there will be interactive activities for the different activities in the lessons. All of the games that you remember from the first edition are still there, but they have been refreshed with new designs, and they've also been, in some cases, remade in order to make them work a little bit nicer for in-classroom use. And one of the best things about the classroom presentation tool for the second edition is that it will be available, installable on a USB, or you can stream it online as well if you have quality connection in your classroom. So we have 2 ways of being able to work with that tool. For our students, they're getting a massive upgrade from their previous online platform. In the second edition, we now have a full and fantastic online practice platform for students to engage with. This platform has all of their games from the first edition for practice and for fun, but those games have been redesigned and refreshed. Additionally, there are workbook activities which are better for more assessment type prep for tests and things like that. Their audio and video is embedded in those workbook activities. There are progress rewards for students so they feel a sense of accomplishment as they move through the content either on their own or through assignments from you as a teacher. And my favorite part is that this platform is completely mobile responsive, which means it will work on their smartphones, on their tablets, or on a desktop or laptop computer. So it'll work on any device they choose to work with, which also means it will be much easier for parents to interact with it as well. So I've saw some questions about the app from the first edition. The app, as you know it from the first edition will not be upgraded to a second edition app. Instead, this new platform will be your second edition app because the platform functions totally on any device. We're really excited about this. The best part
Yay!
about moving to this platform is that it means we now are able to offer you a phenomenal learning management system as teachers as well. So now you can really track students' online practice progress. You can create homework and assignments for them. You can see their grades. You can see how much time they've taken. You can see how many times they've done an activity. You can send messages to your students or to parents, and they can message you back. You can report on their progress. And this management system is also where you'll access your online version of the classroom presentation tool. So every teacher who is working with the online practice with their students and is managing them through the learning management system will automatically get access to an online version of the classroom presentation tool for their content as well. In addition to all of these teacher functions, of course, you have access to all of the online practice content that students have as well. So we're really, really excited for this. It's available on a completely new website and platform, and we will be thrilled to give you more information about it. The last updated area, though, for teacher support is something very near and dear to Joan, and that is that she is updating her free professional development program for Our World Second Edition and Explore Our World. And Joan, can you tell us really quickly about the new videos you're providing?
Sure. So if you don't know, everything's provided online for free on that website that you see a screenshot on. And of course, you know, getting feedback from teachers, I knew that there were some requests for professional development videos, and so we I'm filming them right now to help you and give you support for how to teach writing, how to teach reading, how to teach grammar, how to teach vocabulary, and all of these new videos are actually connected to these simplified teaching routines. These are one-pager routines where there's like 3 steps that no matter what what grammar lesson you're teaching, you can use these 3 steps to teach grammar. No matter which vocabulary page you're working on, you can use this simple 3-step routine to teach vocabulary. The writing routine is 5 steps to take your students through the writing process. And so we're hoping that, 1, you'll get new ideas for teaching reading, writing, grammar, and vocabulary, but that also for teachers, you can just grab this one-pager if you don't have time, and you can teach from the vocabulary page or the grammar page or reading or writing and be successful. So it's just another way to provide teachers with, I think, what they need to be able to use our world effectively.
That's great. I'm so excited. I love this professional development program. I think it's a fantastic tool you've been able to provide, and I'm so glad we're able to provide more support for it. So we're at the end of our hour, but we do want to stay on and provide some time for you to ask questions. So what I'll say is we're so excited about all of the hard work that Dr. Shin and the editorial teams and the authors and of course you as teachers have put in to making this new edition of Our World and Explore Our World as well. In many ways, it's the same fantastic program that you remember from the first edition, with, as you can see on the screen, all of the same resources as before, but in some cases, even better, and hopefully with even more real-world content, more opportunities for students to do more, and more support for you as teachers. So I want to ask you a quick question. We'd love to get an idea, if you're still here, of how many of you are actually teaching or have taught with Our World First Edition in the past. And while you're answering that question, please do ask us any questions that you might have about the new edition that we haven't covered. Or if you have any questions about things that we have already talked about while we end our time. So is there anything that anyone would like to ask specifically of myself, or more importantly, of Joan, about the new program, or maybe just her experiences? Anything at all? Oh. So that's a good question from Elizabeth Maldonado. So the name of the book has not changed to Explore Our World. Some of you may or may not know that the Our World curriculum is actually available in 2 different formats. The main 4 skills curriculum is Our World. So that's a balanced program with up to 6 hours a week of teaching material, and that covers listening, speaking, and reading and writing equally. Explore Our World is a version of Our World, the same fantastic content, the same great curriculum, but it has up to 3 hours a week of content load, and it is more communicative a program. So there's really a focus on listening, speaking, and pronunciation. We do still have the Our World readers in the 2nd edition. They are not changing from the 1st edition. But we will provide some more online support for some of the resources for them, like audio tracks to go along with them, for example. But the readers are the same. A question about whether or not the website will effectively work on any device. So what I can say is that we have done extensive testing and worked really hard to make sure that the online practice platform for students works on any device, whether that's smartphone, tablet, or laptop or desktop. And I can say that I've seen it in action and I know that it does work. But like any platform, there are operating system requirements as well, and those will be provided when you adopt the program. Yeah. What I can say, Daniel Martins, is that we actually designed the games and the content of the online practice mobile first. So what that means is that all content was designed first to load and work best on mobile screens, like a smartphone, and then we designed up from there. So what I hope is that you'll have an opportunity to try it. We'll work to make sure that there are opportunities to demo the content, and I hope you'll be pleased. Okay. How do we prepare for 1 to 2 level learners? So we might need a little bit more clarity on that question. I'm assuming maybe low-level learners, how can we prepare? I mean, Joan, from your experience, do you think that Our World is a difficult program to prepare maybe lower level 1 to 2 level learners for?
Well, what we have done with Our World is really try to really take a look at how young learners learn, right, at every age level. And so we're really utilizing approaches that we know work best for young children. And so I don't know if you could notice in the content that you saw, but perhaps I can say for those of you who've never used Our World before, perhaps it looks overwhelming. Maybe that's where the question comes from, that it looks like it's overwhelming to present so much content to young learners. But what we have learned through this process of monitoring how children are using Our World, that it is very effective for young learners, even 1 at a young age and 2 who maybe don't have a high level of English. I know that teachers that I talked to, I remember in Brazil, there were teachers who talked about how it looked overwhelming. There was so much content, so much vocabulary, so much grammar, and that they were a little bit skeptical if their learners at very, low levels would be able to learn English through these materials. And what they said was what they realized is that children can do more. They can do more than what you expect. And so even if you think this is a context that's too high for them, or there's so many vocabulary words, that if you give them a chance to communicate with those words and to learn through content and through a meaningful context, that you will be surprised as to how much they can achieve through language learning. And so what I would say to the teachers asking about how do you approach teaching students in maybe lower levels is that you really should take an approach where you have high expectations of your young learners and know that the way that they learn language is through a meaningful context that's interesting and relevant to them. And we provide you all the scaffolding that you will need to bring learners up to that level.
And I think we've really seen that. And in some of the testimonial that we provided earlier, you were able to see that that's exactly what many teachers told us were their experiences with our world. That said, you can see on the screen that we do support all types of classrooms with this curriculum. And so as I mentioned, the Our World curriculum is available in 2 different formats. The first is the Balanced 4 Skills Our World series, which is a 7-level series. It's rich in content, the units are longer, it has a balanced 4 skills curriculum and a lot of project work. But for many schools and teachers we work with, they look for a more communicative focus, and maybe they do look for shorter readings because of time or different curriculum expectations. And so Explore Our World is a fantastic way to work with the same content, the same cross-curricular content, the same expectations of the student, but with shorter units and a focus on listening, speaking, and pronunciation. And that includes shorter readings as well. So there are definitely options for all different types of classrooms. Well, great to see some comments here about having 6 hours a week. It's been 2 years with the material, and we already see a lot of improvement. Thank you so much for that comment. All right. Good question, Barbara. At this point, Explore Our World is only available explicitly in American English. So there are no British English specific versions of the Explore Our World series, and that will be in the 2nd edition as well. Yes. I did see earlier there was a question about when this will be available. Our World American English is, the student books are already published and available now. And the components and all the support materials will be publishing through the rest of this calendar year and into the end of January 2020. And so you should be receiving a lot of information and updates from your local National Geographic Learning representatives about this new edition. The British English will be available for summer, my summer here up in the United States, summer 2020. And Explore Our World 2nd edition will also be a summer or winter, depending on where you are, 2020 launch as well. Yes. We're very excited. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I think we should wrap up. Just a couple of notes for you. As we said, we'll be emailing you all a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, and we'll make sure you have access to the different videos so that you can watch them, and you'll get a recording of this session as well. If you enjoyed today's session, please do visit eltngl.com/webinars to learn about other upcoming National Geographic Learning webinars for adults, teens, and young learners, most of which are academically and professional development focused, and to subscribe to notifications. If you're more of a reader, you could go to the In Focus blog and subscribe there to be notified when teaching tips for the ELT classroom are posted. As a reminder, you'll be directed to a very short survey after this, once the session ends. We would love to hear your feedback on today's session so that we can improve our content, improve our webinars, and make sure this is the best experience for you. And last, we invite you to join our National Geographic Learning community of teachers on our social media platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and other regional specific social channels like WeChat in China, for example, to get information about live and virtual events, practical classroom tips, and exciting real-world content and new product information. We're so thank you that you were able to join us today. Joan, we thank you as well for sharing your time, first of all, your feedback and your experience. And we're thankful for all of you that you were able to join us today for this very exciting update. We're thrilled to have been able to work so closely with so many educators around the world to make sure that the new edition of this program meets your expectations and is what you wanted it to be. And we're very excited to be able to launch it and work with you now. If you're interested in learning more about the Our World program, please do visit the website at eltngl.com/ourworld2e. And of course, we'll provide you with ways to link to that as well in our follow-up emails. And if you know who your local National Geographic Learning representative is, don't hesitate to reach out to ask for more information. Dr. Shin, any last words?
No, just thank you for the opportunity to share what's new about Our World Second Edition. I hope you are all excited to take a look at it in more detail, so please go to the link. And I thank you all for joining us. Thanks. Thank you.
So happy. Thank you, everyone, so much. Thank you for spending a little extra time with us. And we look forward to sending you all the information after the session ends.